All right, we're going to talk about the economic calendar here for this week, and I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown on what to look for the actual economic calendar, and also to look for political events, because it's very important, because political events has been a main driver for the foreign exchange market this whole summer. So it's very important to understand that political events will drive the economic activity versus the economic calendar events. If Trump is speaking, Trump's going to override the foreign exchange market all day long, no matter what is good and bad with the economics. Where it could be good news for US, and then all of a sudden Trump just lays out flat out negativity for the US, and then they just drives the US dollar down. So very important to understand the differences if you are trying to be more fundamental and more into economics. Let's dive down in here. So, but looking at the MyFX book economic calendar, there's not a whole lot going on for today, except we got the BOJ coming out for later. So that's the only thing I'd be looking at, is the Bank of Japan. All here. You notice that there's 3 high impact news in one medium, but they all come out at this. Hold on a second. But they don't come out at the same time. But the BOJ outlook, the policy statement, and the rate decision come out at the same time, because you can clearly see 2100. If you don't understand the military time, 2100 is 9 o'clock at night for me here in Central Time Standard in the United States. Then you get the BOJ conference 2 hours later. This is very important, because this will drive the economic speech, especially for the Bank of Japan and what they plan on doing for their inflation, the economic growth, and what's projected for the next rate decisions. Very important, because even if they don't raise rates, I mean, it's still good for the Bank of Japan, because they're not decreasing their rates. If they ever decrease the rates, then yes, they will. The Japanese yen will lose a lot more value, but they're not going to do that. I expect good news, so that's why I'm expecting to just keep selling USD JPY. Now, the other JPY pairs are going to take a different hit, so this is going to affect every single JPY pair, and have to be very, very careful, you know, where JPY is going to go for tonight, especially for well, the most important thing is the policy statement, not the rate decision, and then the press conference right after that. So that's something to pay attention to, especially for Japan here. I got something going on. Hang on. We gotta pause this. All right, so let's hop back into it. So let's come into Tuesday here for the MyFX economic calendar here. For Tuesday, GDP and consumer price index is getting released exactly at the same time. Oh shoot. Whoops. I'm sorry, I didn't share my screen. Hang on. Sorry about that. Yeah, so you have the gross domestic product, right? And then consumer price index exactly at 4 in the morning Central Time. So everything I'm talking about is based on Central Time, because everything is already punched in and clocked in for Central Time Standard anyways. Very important, because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 impact news exactly at the same time. It's 5 high impact news. I don't care about the unemployment change here, because you're talking about unemployment for each country for Europe. So that's too much to look at. Now for the GDP and consumer price index, that's for every single thing for Europe. So it's a very key component to the economic activity. Let's see what else. And then we have MyFX book doesn't list personal consumption expenditures as red news, but if you look at investing.com, they list it as red news. And so be mindful that you have to look at every single other, like you have to look at Let me punch in Forex Factory. You can clearly see that I look at Forex Factory too, because Forex Factory lists right here. You have to read up on all the news and the latest stories. This is dives into economic reports, also the decisions that were made from the central banks, that gets updated. Also, if Trump is speaking and all of a sudden something happened right now in New York sessions, then you get to see another latest news coming out. And it's very important because sometimes you have to look at this. I refresh this like about every 30 minutes or so, or maybe every other hour. But I mean, if something was like drastically about to happen and the markets are just starting to spin up or starting to like get more volatile, and the market is starting to react a little bit more different, then I jump in and we try and look for some kind of news, because on the political side, not on the economic side. And it could be the UK Brexit deals going on, something with the Fed, with the United States, but most of the time it's just with President Trump. So very important to know where things are going. I mean, this is the most volatile market, so you have to know where things are going at most of the time, especially if you're swing trading for that long and you're constantly staring at the charts. You got to figure out where things are going to go for the next session, for the next day, and what could possibly happen during the week. Because during the week, Wednesdays and Thursdays, you got to be prepared. So Tuesday, all eyes on Euro, and then back to, like I said, you gotta look at the time, because it's very important. Because those that look at the news, they just look at the high. They just look at, oh, it's just one high impact news. No, it's not. If you look at the release time, if you really look at the release time, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 impact news coming out. And you got Canada for gross domestic product too. So if you're trading USD CAD and you're just looking at just the US news, and you forgot that there is Canada news coming out at the same time, you have to be well prepared for that. It could whipsaw you. And so a lot of people are just looking at oh yeah, I'll just look at it's just one high impact news. I don't care about medium news. But then they don't realize that the medium news are attached to the high impact news at the same time. You have to look at the time. Can't stress that enough for those that are trying to trade high impact news and are not looking at what else is being released at the same time with the economic calendar. I mean, it gives you the time, and the MyFX book counts down by the seconds. I mean, it's the only economic calendar that counts down by seconds that I know of that I use. Forex Factor don't count the time. Investing.com counts all the way down to 1 minute, but it doesn't count like 59 seconds all the way down to 0 before the release. And that's how I trade high impact news, for those that have been following me. It's very important. And so if you're not looking at this, if you're just looking at one impact news, obviously there's probably more than one impact news getting released. If I were to just take this all off, right? Let's put the load news in. Let's put the load news. Let's put all the news, no impact on here. Let's do this. That's a lot to look at. And you have to like figure out what news is going to benefit and what's going to spike up and cause the most volatility. It's not low news, but you can see how many low news is for US today, right? The most one was the pending home sales, but I don't care about pending home sales. Pending home sales doesn't have a huge effect like non-farm payroll, GDP, interest rate decision, when the Fed is speaking or if Trump is speaking. Those are the 5 main things I'm looking at. I don't care about existing home sales. I don't care about, anything that deals with home sales. I don't really look at the US for that. And so probably the one that is by far the most important one is probably the Dallas Fed Manufacturing Business Index, which is better than expected. But the plan was to sell the dollar today anyways. The dollar hasn't been really going up anyways. The dollar has been going down, and maybe either tonight it will trace back up or maybe tomorrow. It all depends. And so tomorrow, I mean, this week is non-farm payroll, so you have to be prepared for that. You can clearly see that all these low news, there's so much low news that it gets confusing to look at, okay, what news, what economic activity is the most important, right? If the most important thing is just high impact news, then just go straight, take everything off and just dive into the high impact news. And you can clearly see how much high impact news we have. Well, hang on. What's going on here? Okay. All right, cool. Notice that Wednesday, I don't care about Tuesday, because Tuesdays, what I'm really focusing on this week is just back to New York sessions. I talk about New York sessions because London overlaps with New York for the first 3 hours in New York. New York is by far the most volatile session there is. And you have to look and see, okay, what is the most important event that's going to come out before non-farm payroll? It's the most important event that's going to come out before non-farm payroll is the Fed right here. You got a lot of stuff coming up. The Fed statement, the rate decision, the MBS purchase program, and the Treasury purchase program. Hi, Chloe. You awake? Okay. So you have two news. Well, you have the policy statement and the rate decision at 1300. That's at 1 p.m. Central Time. 1 p.m. Central Time, right? And then you have the Fed pace, both Fed pace, MBS purchase program, and the Treasury purchase program. I haven't really looked into this, so this is pretty interesting because it's the first time I've seen this, and it comes out an hour after. So it could go back to back. And this is by far the kickoff, like a Super Bowl kickoff. Those that watch football, this is like a Super Bowl kickoff on Wednesday for US because everything revolves around the US dollar. So Wednesday is the most important day before Friday. And then Thursday is another important day because if you're trading the pound, guess what the pound's got going on? Pound's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then Carney speaking 30 minutes after that. This is an hour before New York opens at 6 a.m. because New York opens for me at 7 a.m. Central Time because New York opens at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. So at 6 a.m., you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have 7 high impact news for the pound. And then right after that, Carney's got to give his speech on why they voted for a rate hike or why they didn't vote for a rate hike. If he doesn't sound too hawkish, guess what? He sounds dovish. Sending the pound right back down, and then the pound's gonna lose more value. Guess who's gonna gain value? Euro. So Euro GBP would be a really good buy against the pound. Let's talk about. I'm really not worried about the BOJ monetary policy meeting because everything is really going to be focusing on the non-farm payrolls on Friday. They're expecting an increase on jobs. I really don't expect an increase at all. I just expect to keep selling the dollar. So even if the dollar retraces on Thursday, I'm going to sell it for Friday, regardless of what. Remember, Friday we sold the dollar. GDP was 4.1. I don't care about GDP, right? Because the GDP met that one number, but everything else is bad. Off the core expenditures was bad. The total weight overall of the GDP was higher than the previous one at 3.2 versus 2.2, but it didn't meet the expectations of what the Fed was actually really looking for anyway. So that's why the dollar fell right back. So very important to see where things are going for the economic calendar and the political activity. And like I said, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Friday. That's it. That's all I'm really looking at. And we got the BOJ tonight. And then Tuesday, you're going to be trading the Euro gross domestic product with the consumer price index, and then US's core the core CPI pretty much. That's the way I see it. And then what we got going on here? New Zealand's unemployment and employment change. Is that also New Zealand? No, Australia's trade balance. That's pretty much it. Not a whole lot going on for Australia and New Zealand, but they're still holding on to their. If we're selling the dollar, then we're actually buying the Australia and New Zealand anyway. But New Zealand's a lot stronger than Australia, so there you guys have it. And I know it's like a quick rundown, but eventually you're gonna find out like what news events you like to trade, what pairs you like to trade on those news events, and what pairs are in correlation or inverse correlation of those news events. And so I can't if I were to look at full tutorials, it'd be like a 2-3 hour video. And so I don't want nobody to be like, oh man, I can't watch 2-3 hours of this. It's a lot to look at. It is a lot to look at because you really have to be good at trading every single high impact news for a year straight, or that's the way I do it. I mean, I trade every single high impact news, even though I lost, that 17,000 on non-farm payroll. So you trade every single high impact news as much as possible, and then you get to figure out, okay, this is why it goes up, this is why it goes down, and if I'll just hop into FX Street here, because if you get to hear and you get to read up on, like I click on the news here, and right here. So they're saying that the Fed is unlikely to send any new policy signals. This is coming from Danske Bank. So they're saying that the Fed isn't really going to be hawkish at all for Wednesday. Let's see what else. This is just a heads up because you want to dive in and start reading up on these articles. Central banks in focus for this week, which they are. You got the BOJ, you got the US Fed for Wednesday, and then you got the Bank of England for Thursday. So it's very, very important when you have 3 central banks lined up for this whole week. I'm trying to see what else I can put down here. I mean, I really don't want to make too much of a long video to get everybody confused, because the more you experience in trading, the better you're going to find your style, your niche, and your adaptability in the markets. It's the most easiest way I can say it, because a lot of people are like, well, I mean, you can't really rely. I mean, like I said, you just can't really rely on me forever. Because I mean, that's the most important thing. Like I will always be there and to update and to look at what's going on for different sessions, for each session. But eventually, like I said, when you go on your own, you have to I have to really make sure what's going on for the fundamental side. And so, and you can clearly see here on the dollar, on the 15-minute chart for the US dollar, that's going down. I mean, went all the way up to 94.9, didn't break the 95 mark, and shot all the way back down. And this is the opening gap here. No, that's not the opening gap. This is the opening gap here. So you can clearly see it broke the opening gap price, and it's just sending it all the way back down, looking for it to break 94.10, and then back down to 93. That's all I'm looking at. I'm looking for a strong sell for the dollar. That's all I'm looking at for this week. That's all I got.